It's official. Nintendo finally added Game Boy games to the Nintendo Switch Online service. This was actually predicted a while back, about a year ago, I'd say, and it ended up being the Nintendo 64 and Sega Genesis games. But they finally added Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games, with the Advance games being locked behind the expansion pack. So today, I will be talking about if this change alone finally makes Nintendo Switch Online actually worth it. Without further ado, let's get into it. So yeah, the Switch can now play Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games. Pretty cool, honestly. Nintendo really wants us to buy the Nintendo Switch Online and the expansion. And a lot of people hate it. Like, really hate it. They don't think Switch Online is worth it. They think it's annoying how you gotta pay for you gotta pay for online, even though Xbox Live and PlayStation Plus exist. And the expansion pack, that's a whole another can of worms. The release trailer for the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack quickly became one of Nintendo's most disliked YouTube videos of all time. That is, until YouTube removed dislikes for some reason. So Nintendo's been doing everything they can to make people buy Switch Online plus the expansion pack. They included the Octo expansion, which is really fun. I'm glad I could finally play that. They included the Mario Kart 8 DLC, which is annoying because I bought it before I got the expansion. Not one of my best decisions. They included the Animal Crossing DLC, which is really fun. And then, of course, pretty much the main reason why anybody, including myself, bought Nintendo Switch Online. The NES, the Super Nintendo, the Nintendo 64, and now Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games. Now, currently, right now, for Game Boy games, the library is pretty small. There's only 9 games, which is, I guess, you could get a ton of fun out of these 9 games, but I'd still like to see more. And for the Game Boy Advance games, the library is even smaller, with only 6 games. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of the Game Boy Advance games are games that you could get plenty of playtime out of, but, like, if you like to beat a game as soon as you pick it up and play it, then that's not going to be too good. Now, for the Game Boy selection, it's pretty weird. We have Alone in the Dark, which is like a horror game. I have no clue why they added this. We have Game & Watch Gallery 3, not 2 or 1, but whatever, it's fine. Gargoyle's Quest, which is kind of an obscure Ghost and Goblin spinoff. Kirby's Dream Land, which is pretty good. Of course, you gotta add Tetris there. Like, it's Tetris. Super Mario Land 2, 6 Golden Coins. I don't know why they didn't include the original one, but this is my favorite Mario game, so I'm not complaining. Metroid 2, this is my favorite Metroid game, so I'm not complaining. Link's Awakening DX, this is probably one of my favorite Zelda games. And then Wario Land 3, which is also a fantastic platformer. Now, the Game Boy Advance selection is a bit less obscure. We have WarioWare Inc., which is a classic. You can never go wrong with some classic WarioWare. Super Mario Advance 4, Mario Bros. 3. I don't know why they didn't include the other Mario Advance games, but this is actually the version with the e-reader card built in, which originally could only be played on a Wii U or if you actually owned the e-reader. So I'm glad I finally get to play these games. You have Mario Kart Super Circuit, which, alright, not bad. Kuru, I screwed up that name. This game is pretty fun, though. You gotta drag a constantly rotating stick across a bunch of levels, and if you can't hit the edges, and that's actually a pretty interesting premise. We have the Minish Cap, which I'm having so much fun with right now. And then we have Superstar Saga, one of the best RPG games ever. Overall, I'm having a ton of fun with these games. There is one problem, though. Nintendo put out a list of games that they're going to be releasing for the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance apps. And Pokemon wasn't on there. You're adding Pokemon Stadium to the N64 library. Pokemon would have been perfect to coincide with that. I don't know, man. I mean, we are getting Pokemon trading card games, so at least that's something. Yeah. Game Boy is great and all, and so are the NES and SNES games. You probably have played a ton of those. But we cannot forget N64 games. And the library for them is fantastic. We got classics like Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, the Mario Sports games, Banjo-Kazooie, Majora's Mask, and Ocarina of Time, Pokemon Snap, Kirby 64, Pilot Wing 64, and of course, GoldenEye! And you could save suspend points in these versions too, which is great if you're playing a game like Zelda. And of course, there's Sega Genesis games, which the library kind of mid, but still, they're there. You could play them. Now, if you're into retro gaming like I am, all of these gaming options alone make Switch Online worth it. Like, I love to play Game Boy, GBA, NES, SNES, N64, Genesis games, all in this one device that I could access anywhere, along with a ton of other games. But if you're not into that, then you might not think that it's as great a deal as you'd expect. If you want to go all the way and buy the expansions so that you could get the N64, GBA, and Sega Genesis games, then it is a pretty steep price. It's $50 a year, which isn't terrible, but if you're only using it to play N64 games, then there are a lot better options. Plus, it is kind of annoying how you're basically paying for an emulator, which you could download on a computer or something for free. Don't get me wrong, it's still an awesome service, but $50 for the entire package? A little pricey. So, it all comes down to preference. Is it a good deal to you if you're going to use every single aspect like I am? Like, I use the Octo expansion pack all the time. I play all the retro games and stuff. Then, to me, it's a good deal because, like, I'm using everything that it has to offer. But if you're only going to use the Switch Online service for just NES games or just Game Boy games, then there's way better options. There's better emulators, and don't forget the Wii U and 3DS could have a virtual console where you could buy all these games individually, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper than the Switch. So, I mean, I'd hurry up because it closes in a month, but still, there's a ton of better games there's a ton of better ways to play these games than just the Switch if you're just using it to play one emulator. But if you are using every single aspect of the Switch Online expansion, then, oh yeah, totally, it's worth it. And plus, Nintendo is going to keep adding things to the Nintendo Switch Online expansion because it's not doing so hot right now. And they're probably going to just keep adding stuff until people eventually buy it. So I'd say for right now, it's a pretty good investment. So if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what are your thoughts on the Nintendo Switch Online expansion stuff, and are you happy to see Game Boy games? And also, what Game Boy games do you want to see in the future? Drop them all down below in the comments section, and remember to hit that bell icon so you stay up to date on all of my future videos. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. I hope you have a great day. Linda, did you hear? They're shutting down Square Enix's Marvel's Avengers game. Oh, they announced that like weeks ago. Man, that sucks. I really liked that game. You're probably the only person that's ever said that. How am I always the last person to hear about this stuff? I'm not sure, but I assume it's because you don't listen to the gaming news. The gaming news? What's that? What the? You've never heard of the gaming news? It's my new podcast. I inform you about all the things that are happening in today's gaming culture, so that way you could stay up to date with all the news about gaming. Really? Huh. Yeah, how else would I have known that EA just canceled Titanfall 3? Ah! Where did you come from? And how would I know that Nintendo just re-released Metroid Prime for the Switch? Ah! How did you guys get here? Don't worry about it. What you should be worrying about is that you're not listening to Gaming News with Landon. You're right, I should be worried about that. I need to start listening right away. Remember, if you want the latest in gaming news, listen to my brand new podcast, The Gaming News with Landon. The link is in the description. Did you just break the fourth wall? Whatever. The Gaming News with Landon is out right now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but it will soon be out on any app that you could use to listen to podcasts. Remember to check it out.